Relics from the 70's.
This is a great category, by the way. We should do lots of these.
Yeah, well, I was just thinking relic. I mean, it could be anything because of that time period, that distance in time away. But if it feels like it was overlooked or sort of dusty and you're dusting it off,
Yep.
so much the better.
Yep. I have
And
two extremely dusty entries.
and the only thing I would say about the 70's is for me, the 60's just bled into the 70's. And if you were going to distinguish a sound, it's really like late period 60's is early 70's with some overlap, like the new kinds of music like glam and eventually punk.
It's funny. There's a term used in political history called the long 60s, which actually extends into the early to mid 80s.
Oh,
I just use Rod Argent as a measure for everything. Hold your head up.
Oh,
Uh, well, because he was in the Zombies, which are a really 60s band and a great one too. But then he did this kind of hard rock thing in the 70s. I picked two records that I've had for almost 40 years, which is crazy to think
holy
about.
shit.
But I mean, these are two that I got. I mean, I was probably 15 when I got them, but they sort of represent sort of my initiation into something of a higher order, I think, than, what I'd been listening to previously. I mean, I had aspirations beyond, say, Pink Floyd or whatever, but I just didn't know where to look. So I found I found it in the form of Lou Reed, of course, like everybody else. Lou Reed and Velvet Underground. I mean, that's just the point of reference for any and all indie rock types.
you talking about Transformer, his second solo record?
Yeah, yeah. So this is his second solo record. The first being a completely overproduced nightmare. No, this is well, this has a great production because it's David Bowie and Mick Ronson, smooth yet feisty. Um, and anyway, it's got everybody's favorite Walk on the Wild Side, but for my money, the best song by far is Satellite of Love. A great record, like the cover art, a bit sort of washed out and strung out in its sound. I don't know. I wasn't. I guess I was actually in New York at the time this came out, just barely in existence. But yeah, I don't know what to say about this except that it's absolutely fabulous. It's kind of got his spoken word type delivery, his kind of half-hearted singing, but music behind it that is consistently engaging and interesting. Takes me to a place I never was, but feel vaguely nostalgic about, I guess. So that's item number one. Then item number two, which makes sense as a continuation of the kind of journey that I was on, is Brian Eno's third album, Another Green World, from 1975. So at this point, he'd been kicked out of Roxy Music for a while. And after the first two solo records, which were definitely rock efforts, sort of working in the idiom of like, 4/4 time, bass, drums, guitar type stuff. Although there was plenty of weirdness, they were way more straightforward than this, where he's actually sort of chopping up source material and recombining in these weird ways. Like so, the first song, Sky Saw, is like this kind of weird fusion, like jam that is put in a blender. There's this kind of funky bass that is discombobulated and then recombobulated with this crazy viola from John Cale coming in at the end in really one of the more arresting sonic spectacles that I've witnessed. I remember hearing it actually this first track and just immediately thinking that I had found like the music that I've been looking for all along. So most of the album is pretty instrumental, but there are at regular intervals uh, s- more conventionally structured songs with vocals. But again, there's a sort of, well, was going to liken it to Transformer, which it's not at all like, except that it's very, except insofar as it conjures up another kind of space and time. And the neat thing about this record is that it conjures up a sort of extraterrestrial space and time. I mean, it's another green world, so you know, it's kind of like our planet, but clearly different rules apply. Yeah, the drumming is done by Phil Collins. He was cool once. Just imagine that, you know, the guy who did Sussudio. Uh, that's my bet. What you got, Chris?
Yeah, I discovered both of these, as an adult. Nothing except I thought they were, this was really cool music. So first one I chose, Captain Beyond's self-titled debut album. It's from I think 72, something like that. So these guys were a super group of sorts that never really, they never really made much of a splash. But the singer was Rod Evans, who had been Deep Purple's, I believe, Deep Purple's first singer. Um, and two guys from Iron Butterfly, and some guy who had been in like the Edgar Winter band. So they were, there were a bunch of groups kind of like this. And I think Captain Beyond were way better than, these guys were great. And this is a great album. It's kind of hard rock, but it's proggy. 12 songs on this record, but it doesn't really feel like they're individual songs. Like one sort of flows into the next, and it feels like there's sort of three song suites, maybe. So there's a definite proggy vibe on it. It is definitely hard rock. It has a little bit of, even though it has Rod Evans singing, it doesn't really sound like Deep Purple. It has a definite Southern rock kind of vibe to it, like in the best way. And as it happens, the record is dedicated to the memory of Duane Allman, which is interesting. And also it's on Capricorn Records, which was the Allman's record company. And I didn't know it existed. I didn't know these guys existed until like 5 years ago. Really pleasant find. So that was my first relic. And my second relic is this. 1970s Algerian Proto-Rai Underground. How to explain this one? This came out on Sublime Frequencies, which is like a Seattle label that kind of specializes in, well, stuff from other countries, particularly North Africa, the Sahel, and Southeast Asia, mostly. If you're familiar with Rai music, it's like Algerian sort of popular, Algerian pop dance music kind of. I have not been a fan of it because modern Rai music it's really like, it's heavily synthesized, it's really saccharine, it's sugary sounding. I'm just not really, doesn't do much for me. Rai, it came out of Algerian folk songs, popular songs that go back for decades and decades and decades. And the stuff on this record, it all came out of Oran, which is like a port city in Algeria. And this was during the 70's, when there was a Marxist dictatorship in power that frowned on expressions of like Western decadence, I guess we could say. These guys were all playing in like, little clubs in Oran and, doing weddings and things like that. And as opposed to modern Rai, there is nothing sugary about this. Like you see the cover here, it's got a gun, it's got like a, it's kind of sleazy looking, right? The music sounds that way. And it's gritty as hell, it's percussive, it's propulsive. These updated popular songs with, modern instrumentation, like there's horns, there's a wah-wah guitar on one track, which is awesome. And it's cool music, kind of rock and roll, kind of funk, kind of, I don't know, Arab beat. You put it all together, this is very worth having. So that's my second relic. Jackson?
Well, I picked two relics from the 70s that are opposite in their effect when listening to them. So one's European, one's very American. The first one is Quiet Sun, which is a Phil Manzanera supergroup. This is a band that was playing live a lot before he joined Roxy Music. And then years later, they got together in the studio and made this record from 1975. So it sounds very fresh because of that. They had all their material and they unearthed it to record this. So it would be classified as Canterbury Sound, although I keep it in my prog section because that's what it is. It's early prog and it's great. Lots of time changes, very organized sounding. But what's great about it is Phil Manzanera is a master of guitar sustain and distortion. So there's all this great guitar work, along with Bill McCormick, who plays bass and would go on to work with Robert Wyatt in Matching Mole and solo records by Robert Wyatt. It's searing prog with lots of time changes with a slight Steve Reich influence there through repetition. You see on the back, I'm not sure these two pictures, you can see Eno is a part of this, who supplies a fabulous cricket sound and various other effects. So this borders on metal in some cases because of the distorted guitar and is certainly European in its effect. It's cosmic, cerebral music of prog variety and would be great for any collection of Canterbury Scene, yes, or a prog collection. And very much in the opposite vein of the American group, Relatively Clean Rivers was like a hippie folk psych rock group.
Cosmic Americana.
From 1976. This is a one-off. And the reason I value this record so much is Phil Pearlman is a great singer. He comes from a band that was like a hippie jam band, Beat of the Earth, where they do just very elongated hippie jams. But this is a really well-organized, well-written sort of California rock, country funk, and it's very danceable. It's got a Velvet Underground influence, surprisingly, but it comes off as very American. Sort of like the Grateful Dead come off as an American band, but they don't sound anything like the Grateful Dead. It's just they share that. It sort of encapsulates that late period of the 60s where it bled into the 70s. But it's very optimistic. So it's not like Altamont. It doesn't have a harbinger of gloom over it. It's just good fun music, groove based, lots of banjo and flute, as well as the normal rock instruments. I would call it hippie rock or psych country. And I keep it in, well, anomalies of the 60s, even though it's 70s.
76 at that. I know it was that late.
Yeah, speaking of Sid,
I like the idea of running into him at the gas station with like a handful of Slim Jims.
I'm not talking about Sid Vicious.
Sid Straw. Sid Charisse.
With that spiky hair and that swastika.
To be a charlatan, to be a charlatan, to be a charlatan, to be a charlatan.
Nancy Spungen doesn't do it for you?
Eric got into some mire there because you got a rooster weirdo prog.
The pros and cons of hitchhiking.
This was Pink Floyd, mind you. I could talk about Monster Magnet.